Welcome to Confessions of a Parent Coach. I'm Coach, mother of four, and potty talker, Ann Kaplan. This is the podcast where I confess something from my own parenting and coaching life, teach a lesson around it, and answer your questions. Even we parenting experts are far from perfect, and the real magic happens when we get down with all that imperfection. We get into the gritty side of parenting here, so earbud up and dive in. Hi, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the podcast. I'm so excited to be with you guys again this week, and extra excited this week because it's a really, really special episode. I've got two of some of my favorite clients. Maybe coaches aren't supposed to have their favorites, but I do, and so does everybody else. So if they tell you they don't, they're lying. I've got two of my faves here with me to talk about parenting, talk about what it's like to value ourselves, and talk about their experience having come on the big retreat that I host every October, which registration is open for now. So you can take advantage of this and feel inspired and go ahead and check it out right away if you want to. And the way to do that, that's super easy to remember. It's a bit.ly link. You know, I love my bit.ly links. bit.ly/retreat deets. So check that out. And in the meantime, listen to KB and Melissa. We're going to have just a free-flowing chat about the retreat, about how hard it is for us to actually take care of ourselves as parents and moms especially, and go from there. Hi, guys. Hi, KB. Hi, Melissa.
Hello.
Hi.
This is great. I originally had this conception that I was going to do an interview with like all my retreat people all at the same time. And I'm so glad that that did not work out, because it would have just been like all of us cackling at the same time.
Lots of inside stories that people will be like, what are they talking
Yeah,
about?
exactly. Or since we're recording on Zoom, just snippets of half of sentences while we all talk all over each other. Yeah, it's much better that it's just the three of us. So I thought we'd kick it off just by kind of each of you taking a turn to just talk about your experience, maybe doing this work and coming on the retreat, and what that was like for you. I don't know, Melissa, do you want to kick it off?
Sure. So, goodness, KB and I have both been on the retreat for the last 3 years. Is that
Hmm.
correct?
Mhm.
Um, and it is a lot to figure out logistics. I'm coming from Colorado, so the first year I had to take a flight that connected in Chicago and then run all the way to wherever I needed to be to hop on a flight, which actually KB was on also, um, to get on my next flight to Traverse City, where the retreat is hosted. And um, it's just a magical experience. Fall in Michigan is gorgeous, and figuring out the logistics was well worth it to come to a space where we were cared for and does a phenomenal job of making everyone feel safe and comfortable. So even though you've never met some of these folks in person or even on group coaching, we roll in and the boundaries are set and everyone rolls in to settle in, eat lots of food, move their bodies or sleep in, and just take care of themselves.
Yeah. How about you, KB?
Yeah, I can't believe it's been like 3 years. It was longer than that because I started working with Anne prior to sort of the inception of the retreat. And that was a huge step in and of itself to really kind of raise my hand and ask for help with my kiddos who are now 8 and 6, which is hard to believe. Um, but yeah, it was such a big jump for me because I wouldn't consider myself a retreat person, to really make that commitment and do the logistics of, yes, planning to be gone for 5 days and um, all that that entails as the primary or default parent. So to show up and to have basically every need taken care of and have that weight lifted was absolutely magical. And to then be able to connect with other parents that are dealing with along the same lines, all of the challenges that come with being a parent, and to have that space to kind of connect and sort of, I consider it disconnect to reconnect to recharge through the whole process. And now it's kind of become my annual reset
Yeah.
Everybody in my office knows that week on my calendar. Don't even ask.
I love that. What's the common theme I'm hearing from both of you is, the sort of barriers that we as moms feel to actually making stuff happen for ourselves, whether it's the retreat, whether it's investing in coaching, whether it's, I don't know, getting help taking care of the house or a daycare so that you can have time to yourself. Like all of these sort of logistical or financial or even just mental blocks that we have that prevent us from actually making this thing happen. And the other thing I hear from both of you almost is like just actually doing this for yourself, even before you actually come on the retreat, the act of having done it, the act of having committed to yourself in this way, there's value even in that. I'd love to hear what you guys think about both of those ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something we all sort of struggle with as parents, right? Like, there's so much going on every single day from the moment you open your eyes to the moment you collapse at night, that it's really hard to justify taking the time for yourself to do little things or big things. But once you do take that step, it is kind of a game changer because then you get to have that, I think, that distance from kind of being in the swirl every day, to just breathe for a minute. Like it's
Mhm.
so vital once you have that experience that you're like, that was kind of a thing that was missing from my life. And it really does allow you to grow as a parent and to be a better parent, to take those moments for yourself, even if they're challenging, even if it means getting up at 4:30 in the morning to go to the gym.
That was like actually a huge deal for you. In fact, I remember
It
us
was a huge,
talking about that during
it's
like
been a
your,
huge deal. Yeah.
yeah, I
So
remember
yeah.
you talking about that at like the retreat like 2 years ago
Hmm. Yeah.
about that being a big goal for yourself. And then when I saw on social media that you'd like, run your first race or something after we had
Uh-huh.
that talk, I was like, oh, it's happening.
It's
She's
happening.
doing it.
But again, it's those things that, like, had I not had a minute to myself to really sit and think about how important that was,
Mhm.
it may not have happened. It might still not be happening, but to commit to really dialing into yourself allows you to dial into everything else, I think, in your life.
Mhm. Melissa, what do you think about all that?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think the first year that I came on the retreat, I had a kiddo away at residential treatment, and my kids are a bit older than KB's. They're now 19 and 17, and there's still parenting challenges to navigate through, even as they're young adults and older teenagers. And so taking that time as I was trying to heal, having to send a kiddo out of the home, having another kiddo who struggled in the ways that she struggled, um, that first year and then the second year, and to just have that time and space to connect with other women, was pretty magical. And the logistics are definitely a challenge to get to come. I have everyone who knows me on the retreat knows I'm the crazy dog lady, and like leaving my dogs and just, when you are the primary, KB phrased it pretty well, like that primary default parent or primary parent, even though you have another partner to parent with who manages all those logistics, it can be a huge challenge, but also like to just be cared for and to take that time to move your body or not move your body, to set those goals and to really follow through with them. And to just have that space to get to know yourself again. That's a that many mothers in particular, but parents as a whole lose parts of self when we're out trying to be parents and doing the best we can, and we forget who we are. And so that's the gift of this time away as on a retreat, is to remember who those parts of self are.
Yeah. I also think it was so beautiful to know that you're not alone. Like I often feel like, oh my gosh, my kiddos are crazy. The things that are happening in our house are off the rails. I'm just failing miserably. And then to walk into the room and everybody's like, yeah, absolutely. Oh, okay. It's not completely off the rails and outside of the norm. And it was so beautiful to kind of feel that you're not alone in the madness that is being a parent.
I completely agree. When I first almost everything that exists in my coaching practice exists because I have thought about what I wish I would have had when my kids were younger. And the group program exists because of that. The retreat exists because of that. When I first had my kids, I was so isolated. Like I had no family that lived in Colorado, which is where I'm living. And I didn't have any friends who had kids. And I yeah, it was my first kid. I had no clue, and I just felt so alone. And making my first mom friend, which probably didn't happen until my second kid was born. And we actually I've thought about this before. It's crazy how often we got together, but I think both of us were each other's only person. Like 4 days a week, we would get together and go a walk around this lake in Denver with our kids. And it was my lifeline. And so, having that community piece, it's so huge. Even if the people, like you guys are such a great example, your kids are totally different ages, but you still feel that sort of sisterhood or
Mhm,
camaraderie of
mhm,
a common experience. Like, and also I've seen this happen between, like, there's people who come on the retreat who are quite young, there's people who are older. Motherhood is like the great equalizer. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter how old your kids are. Like, the state of being a parent is such a specific feeling that it really connects us. And I've got this year actually people who are interested in coming on the retreat who are empty nesters, like not even really dealing with the everyday back and forth of parenting the way that we think about it, but it doesn't go away. In fact, I talked to a mom today who was saying, like, um and her kiddo I think is a junior in college. And she was saying, just there's always room to grow. That relationship never goes
mhm,
away. Like, you're always a mom and you're always a parent and that parent-child relationship is always just clutch, no matter what.
mhm.
So,
And the and it keeps changing. I mean, as the world changes,
mhm,
I think the core problems are kind of always still there, but they look very different, and how
mhm,
we tackle them are very different. So
mhm,
there's really beautiful wisdom in the people that have
mhm,
gone before, the people that are in it, and the people that are sort of coming into it in all those various stages. Because, yeah, I mean, my experience has been having children later in life. So most of my friends have children, but they are older children. So
mhm,
it's a different perspective than what I am in. And then, experiencing those that are younger as well brings a different kind of wisdom
mhm.
with it.
Yeah, so both of you talked about, like, the logistics and the legitimacy of logistics being a challenge that we have to overcome in order to prioritize ourselves. Like, for you each, what was the thing that made you do that? Like, what was the thing that made you decide, yeah, it's complicated, but I'm going to figure it out, versus, yeah, it's complicated, so it's just not going to work out for me.
For me, I think it was getting to that sort of mental load breaking point where I was like, I have to do something to know that this house will function even if I'm not here.
Mm.
And it was kind of I felt like I kind of needed to like rip the band-aid almost to
Yeah.
kind of get that ball rolling. Um, and to know, like, to really just have trust in my partner to say like, you can handle this. I know you can handle this, but we don't on a daily basis because I just sort of take that default role. So to really prioritize them in terms of having faith in them and knowing they can do it. Um, and then also just kind of taking that step backwards for me myself to
Mm.
say like, um, this ship will still run without me.
Hmm. It's interesting that you mentioned your partner because I've had a couple conversations with people who same thing. It's like you have to have that trust in your partner, but a lot of us, I mean, if we're honest, we really don't. And
And
then
again,
oh, go ahead.
it's that rip the band-aid, right? Like
Mm,
they'll do it. I feel very confident in
yeah.
90% of people that they will do it.
Mm.
And I think that's part of it is kind of overcoming that hesitancy to say
Well, and I
like it's
think we're
5 days or whatever.
yeah, you can do this. I do it for
You could do it.
360 days. You can do it for 5.
Right.
But I have heard from so many people afterwards say realizing like, oh my gosh, this was actually a gift that I gave my partner. Like my partner, I wasn't the only one who didn't believe that they could do it. They didn't believe they could do it either. And now they did. And it was a gift to my kid because they got to have those 5 days of like, one-on-one and reliance on and care from this other parent or other caretaker. It's in we talk all the time in terms of our like discipline strategy or our parenting approach about stepping back so kids can step up. This is the same thing. When we choose to like go and take care of ourselves, it means that we leave maybe like a little bit of a void, and then the people in our family fill that void and step up. Our kids step
Hmm.
up also, maybe because they have to like experience being without us for a little while, and our co-parent steps up because once again they have to, or maybe it's grandma, or maybe it's whomever. But it's hard to believe sometimes as a mom that walking away is actually a blessing to the people we are walking away from. And obviously we're coming back to them. It's 5 days, right? But
Hmm.
it sometimes feels Herculean.
It
How about
does. I do.
how about you, Melissa? Like, what was the thing for you that was like, it's complicated, but I'm gonna make it work versus it's complicated, so forget it.
I don't even remember like the how I made the decision. I think some of the drivers were I was the other women who were going were folks that I had been doing group coaching with for a couple of years, and it was so great because everybody, many of them came on that first retreat. I had a kid, like I said, away, and also like one thing I remember as you guys were talking that I have been clear about every retreat I've come on is that I've told my husband and whichever humans were in the home, I'm not accessible. I will reach out to you, but I'm not your go-to because, to KB's point and yours, Anne, like we are often the go-to. We're the default of if there's a crisis or a school thing or whatever the situation, we're the ones that get the phone call or kids reach out to us. And so setting that boundary and holding it and like really unplugging from that perspective was really huge. I think for me, like going on making the decision to just go for it was that this was just part of my own healing journey in my relationships with my kids at the time. And it was the right choice.
Well, and I think heard you say like boundaries a few times, and it's interesting to think about doing something for ourselves through the lens of setting boundaries. What do you think about that, Melissa?
I don't even know that I intentionally went into it that way, but also like when my husband travels for work, he has this routine. He calls me in the morning, he calls me in the evening, and I remember saying to him that I don't really know what my schedule is. I'm 2 hours ahead of time, because I'm on East Coast time. And this is my time to unplug. I'll reach out to you as I'm able. And that ended up being a little bit of a source of contention when I came home because I don't think I was heard in that situation. And at the same time, it was a relief to be very clear, especially for me, like boundaries is something that I've been working on for a lot of years with you, Anne. And it was a relief to say, this is for me and I'll reach out when I'm able. And um and that worked out great. I remember that first retreat one day, like going to take a walk by myself and calling my husband and, wandering around the neighborhood and, talking about all the things I was seeing. And it was super magical to get to choose when I was going to do something like that, as opposed to feel obligated or pinned down to have to like connect with things. And that being said, there were times like that first retreat, I remember asking you like, "Hey, I have these check-in calls with my kiddo at treatment. Is that going to be a problem?" And you were like, "Of course not. Like, there's time and space for you to do all the things that you need to do." And that's a big piece of going on this retreat is you can opt in, you can take care of the things you need to personally and professionally. Other women had projects that they had to finish while we were on retreat, and there's time and space to do all of that and also super unplug, and however that looks for each person. So it was a good affirmation for setting those boundaries for me.
Yeah. The thing that just like struck me like right in my heart when you were talking was it was magical to be able to choose, I think was what you said. And it's such a simple thing. And I think, it's easy for all three of us, but especially me, to be in the cheap seats on the other side of considering something like this and be like, oh, it's a no-brainer, and like it's so simple. But when you dial it into something like the magic of being able to choose, like that's something that we have all the time, and we don't just, it literally feels like we don't. We forget that we do. And going and doing something for ourselves like this is a reminder of like, I'm actually the boss of my life. And all of a sudden, when I'm the boss of my life doesn't feel so like crushing or, suffocating or mundane or whatever. I get to decide. And sometimes we just need that step back to remind ourselves, like, I get to decide. Like, I actually do have the magic of choice. And it is magical. It really, really is. I don't know. I just like felt like I got little goosebumps when you said that, Melissa. That was great. KB, what were you? I saw you unmute yourself, so now I want to know what you were going to say.
I immediately go to the food whenever we start talking about magical because I kind of have that same feeling about how amazing it was to have all of that taken care of and to be able to sit down and enjoy a meal without, I need the pink fork or I need a drink or like I have an ADHD kiddo who has a really hard time sitting at the table without somebody like being over here jumping up and down or wanting to like touch me. And it was just like that piece is so magical for me to just be able to have that minute to sit down and enjoy having all of that taken care of and like the nourishment that comes with the process, but also just the physical food is like game changer. I think it's just so, again, one of those things we really just take for granted to be able to sit with a bunch of grown-ups and have a meal uninterrupted and enjoy it and not have to rush through it to get to the
Mhm.
next thing or, hurry up, we got to get to soccer practice or, clean it up and all that jazz. And it was just like those pieces for me are just, that is what I look forward to every single year.
Yeah. I know almost every year I have a picture of you like holding a dessert, like it's like a treasure
Right? Just being
you
like,
found.
it's the magical dessert. My love to the
Exactly.
chef.
I
Uh,
know. It's so
yeah.
great for sure.
But yeah, and I also like Melissa said, there's time and space for everything. Um, to be able to, there's this beautiful schedule laid out, but if you need a minute to go sit on the hammock or take a walk or take a nap, absolutely. There is no expectation that you have to be involved with every single minute of every single thing that's happening, which is, again, another thing that we never allow ourselves the power of choice, the
Hmm.
power to take that control. So that's another thing that kind of spoke to me about what Melissa was saying.
Hmm. I mean, the retreat is a magical time for me as well. Like, because all of these elements, I either take care of them in advance or the chef takes care of them or the yoga instructor's taking care of them or whatever. It frees me up to just be totally present and connected to my people and in service of them. And it's actually almost a spiritual experience for me to really just absolutely 100% put myself in that servant heart space for those 5 days and just give myself over to these people that, I mean, I really, really love you guys. I want to hold you and care for you and have all of those and give you that experience of just being cared for and held that we don't get the rest of the year. And so it's a real gift to myself to be able to do that. And that word magic just keeps kind of popping up in my mind for sure. The other thing I was thinking, KB, when you were talking about the food is like, it's not just that the food is delicious and you have this beautiful uninterrupted meal and you get to have adult conversations and all that stuff, but like you're not the one who did it. Like you didn't have to do it to have it. You have to make it happen to get your butt to the retreat,
Right.
But once you're there, like you don't have to do
Yes.
anything. Like things happen for you
I know that
without you
mental
making them
load,
happen.
mental
Mm-hmm.
load gone. I don't have to think about meal prep, grocery shopping,
Mm-hmm.
timing, cleanup.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I make it like 100% all inclusive. Sometimes you go on a retreat, it's like, oh, you get this, but if you want a massage, that's this much extra. Or if you want to, go out for lunch one day, you have to pay blah, blah, blah. I didn't want it to be that way because that, once again, now that's mental load. And also, I know us women, especially moms, we are going to be like, oh, well, I'm already indulging by being here at all. So I'll skip the massage or whatever. I knew that I would hire a masseuse and absolutely no one would get a massage unless the massage was included. So I like it's once again, it's just like you don't have to think, just get here and I will literally shepherd you for 5 days with no need for you to really do any sort of logistical anything. And, it's such a gift for anybody. I mean, we're all adulting, whether we have kids or not, whether we're women or not, it's just, you know, just getting a break from that and
Mhm.
just being able to really dive deep into your own work and all that stuff is huge. So, oh, Melissa, what are you going to say?
So reflecting on all that, like, the meals and just having everything cared for is so huge to relieve that mental load. Like you're planning no logistics, you're like, oh, what time do we have to be there? Okay, great. And we don't even drive ourselves, which is amazing. I also wanted to say thank you, Anne, for sharing like how you experienced the retreat because I'm going to give a little plug for your Enneagram. Being a nine peacemaker, I always wondered, like, is this really taxing and hard for Anne? Because it is a lot of work. And I know you put a lot into it, a lot of planning, a lot of just so much, ahead of time. But I love hearing that it's like this spiritual experience for you. Um, and I want to also plug like the ceremony and ritual that is part of each retreat is so special and unique, and it just it adds that extra flavor of magic, since we're using that word, to that time and space.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's another thing that's a really beautiful aspect for me personally as a coach of the retreat is it gives me an opportunity to use so many more tools than I use in just a typical regular coaching session. We get to use nature, we get to move our bodies, we get to use, like you said, ritual and sort of symbolism and all five of our senses, and we get to be creative and we get to have music and just all of the other ways of touching or tapping into what we're working on. Brings it to be like such a more whole body experience than just a typical back and forth dialogue in a coaching session can be. And so it really feels like that it just like opens up the space for a lot of like creativity and movement, and it's almost like a blank canvas of time, and that's always been like something I always wish I had more of with my clients is just more time. I never run out of energy for deep conversation or, just curiosity and stuff like that. So when we're at the retreat, it just feels like, we have this huge, big container to just roll around in. And we don't have to be constantly like, oh, I wish I could talk to you about that, but we'll have to save it for next time. We just do it. Maybe our conversation continues on the hike or during dinner because, this specific activity is over, but we aren't leaving each other. And so we get to just really allow things to organically like run their course. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but I've observed anyway that oftentimes someone will be working on something and just kind of like puzzling it out and coming back to it. And then we go to a winery and then they kind of come back to it because we chat about it a little bit at dinner. And then they go off and they sleep on it, or maybe they write about it in their journal or chat with one of the other girls about it while they're going to sleep or something. And you see over the course of like these 3 days, this kind of tricky stuckness that started on day one sort of just like dissolve or morph or whatever. And then by the end, it's like, oh, I figured this out. When do you have like 3 full days to just be with whatever you're working on?
So true. I was thinking about shout out to Coral because we had that experience um about something we did in a session, and um you could see her kind of like mulling it back and forth and being a
Mm-hmm.
little bit quiet. And then we went on a hike and she was like, what about this? And then the chit chat started. And then I think by the end of the hike,
Mm-hmm.
she was like, oh, I think I know where this is going. I was like, that was
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. And it's just such an honor to witness. And
Yeah, again,
um
to be with other people that are giving you that personal connection and
mhm.
feedback and space and time is another level of magic that is
Mhm.
very uncommon these days.
Yeah. Well, so far our conversation has really been about like this, really purposeful and, kind of almost heavy, like, wow, this is a really big deal. But I also, it's hard to explain to someone who hasn't been there, like how just light and joyful and fun and no big deal it is at the same time. I don't know what guys think about that.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
I was
we
gonna
probably
bring.
went
Oh, go ahead, Katie.
we probably went too dark there, right? Like we're talking about really heavy things. But we also play things like the celebrity game and laugh about ridiculous things that have happened throughout the day, like when, one of us gets lost in the woods or the neighborhood.
Oh yeah,
Who did
that's
that?
true. I forgot last year someone went on a run and they got lost, and
Yeah,
I got a
lost.
phone call during
Oh, did
breakfast like, I don't know where I am. Can you come
Yes.
check?
We had a minor rescue mission. It was fine. Everyone was
Or I was
fine.
blown away this last year. All the girls, not all of the girls, but a big group of girls just decided to go do cold plunge in the
Oh my
lake.
gosh, yes.
I was just like, this is amazing. It really just filled me up last year, like how everyone just took everything that we were talking about and they just like went to 11 with it. Like they just really took it and ran with it. And I felt like I just almost like had just planted these seeds and then I just got to sit back and watch everything just bloom like riotously. It was just
Yeah.
so wild and crazy and fun.
Well, last year's theme was wild. So
I know it
everyone,
was. Yeah, that's true. What were you going to say, Melissa?
I was gonna say the best part of that theme and just sort of something like that was kind of an epiphany for me on last year's retreat was that I don't have to opt into everything. Like I'm such a like I should follow all the things. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that art. That sucks for me. And I went and took a nap on the dock, and that was like what my body and system needed. And there was no judgment. Everybody enjoyed what they wanted to enjoy. And my body was like, oh my God, no, thank you. Let's go do something else. Or
Mhm.
just sit by myself. Like we went on that kind of forest bathing picnic lunch, and I was sitting by this tree, and the tree was another crazy thing about Melissa is the tree was calling. And I sat there and you were, talking about, I think, the Enneagram, and everybody was kind of doing their thing. Some people were scattered, and it was so magical to like be on the side, still being a part, but also get to do what I want to do and to give myself that permission. Because how often do we as parents and moms say, I'm going to do what I need to do today to take care of myself or in this moment, when usually
Mhm.
we're by all this other stuff. So that
Yeah.
was such a great opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. That reminds me of a conversation I had recently with my daughter, Gigi. We both talked about how much fun we have when there's a group activity going on and we just stand like just outside of it. And we were just talking about like, doesn't it feel so good? It's like you don't have FOMO because you're totally able to be a part of it if you want to and you're not missing it. But also you get to feel like you're a rebel and you're just doing what you want and you're giving yourself that message of like, I'm the boss of my life. And all of that stuff. And it's 10 times more fun to be alone outside of a group than it is to be just alone. And we were talking about a party or whatever, but I love that. I'm the same as you, Melissa. When I do group activities, like sometimes the thing that I actually need is to give myself the delicious feeling of being like, yeah, screw you guys. I'm not doing that.
That was exactly what I got to do. And I was like, oh, I'm not doing that. I'm going to go walk by myself. And it is, I like the word delicious. Like it is just such a lovely permission to
Mm-hmm.
be be on the side and not be a part of.
Yeah, it's like for me, I don't know, I want to put words in your mouth, Melissa, but for me, it's like being the good, I'm such a good girl most of the time that I love to have these little moments in my life where I'm like, haha, I'm being naughty. Even though it's completely sanctioned naughtiness, I just need to remind myself that like I actually have agency and I'm not a sheep, or whatever. So I totally vibe with that. KB, do you think
Uh,
you're a rebel in that way?
uh, I mean, no one is infringing on my nap spot on the couch. For all of you future retreat participants, look, there's a beautiful couch, and that is my goal every year is to claim this spot and just take a nap because it's again delicious to just be like, I'm gonna lay here and I know no one's gonna bother me,
Yeah.
and there's no agenda that I have to worry about.
No, can I tell you, KB, you taking a nap the first day of the first retreat was the best gift I could have ever received because, it's my first time running this retreat. What if it doesn't work? What if everyone doesn't feel comfortable with each other? Blah, blah, blah. Or what if I feel like I have to perform all the time or, whatever. And it was like the first break, and you made a beeline to that corner of the couch
Did I
and
was like,
you fell
and
asleep like instantly and you slept for hours. And the second I
yeah, it
saw you
was
were
like
asleep,
three
I was
hours.
like, okay, this is great. Like, this is the
Yeah.
vibe I want is like, do what you want, feel how you need to feel, take care of yourself. And everybody who saw you napping was so happy for you.
I know that was when I woke up, I felt like a little kid, right? Like, good job.
I know all of us were like we were all like admiring how great you did at taking a nap. It was like so awesome.
Gold star.
Okay, so we're sort of coming at time. We don't want this to be the never-ending ramble. So tell me like one last thing you want to say that you feel like it's important for people thinking about coming on the retreat to hear.
I know it's hard. I know it's time, it's money, it's logistics. It's probably a little scary if you don't know anybody. If you are a retreat person, not a retreat person, um, I get it. I've been there, I sat there, trying to make that decision. Um, and I think it's one of the best things I've ever given myself. And I think that it is truly a gift and it is worth every single penny. Worry over logistics, planning. You won't regret it.
That's awesome. What do you think, Melissa?
Ditto. How about that?
Just what she said.
Yeah, what KB said. Yeah, it just it's such a special day time for yourself. Even when all those things feel hard to get there, it's worth it. it's worth it to connect with these other women who are living the same and different experiences. And you do a fantastic job of making a safe space and facilitating and bringing in other experts to just help us take care of ourselves. And it's worth it no matter what, even when it feels hard.
Yeah, you guys, oh, it's just so awesome. Thank you so much for making time to talk to me and share your experience and being open. And I would say, even if whoever's listening to this, the retreat isn't in the cards for them for whatever reason, like, I hope that this conversation inspires every single person listening to care for themselves, to set boundaries for themselves, to realize that giving to yourself is the biggest gift you can give to everyone in your life. I really hope that you walk away from today's episode feeling that value that you have and honoring it in some way. And obviously, I hope that the way you decide to honor it is by coming on the retreat. So I'll repeat your link, and obviously it'll be in the show notes and everything. But if you're curious, if we piqued your interest in the retreat, it is happening in October, like it does every year. And you can learn more about it at bit.ly/retreat-deets. And I can't wait to talk to you guys again next week. Thank you so much for being here. You guys are so amazing. So grateful.
Back at you.
Yeah, thank you.
The episode is over, but there's more waiting for you. You can grab my free workbook, Getting Kids to Listen the First Time, that walks you through the fundamental principles I teach all of my clients and applies them to this very universal parenting challenge. So if you're sick of repeating yourself all day long or just want to learn more about my style, you'll definitely want to go to bit.ly/kidswholisten. And if you're ready to work with me, let's meet. Set up a free call at bit.ly/Kaplan call, and let's create an action plan that gets you exactly where you want to go. And of course, links to all this goodness are in the show notes. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time.